This is my house now. Outsiders not related by blood are banned. Get lost, you shameless old hag. The man in front of me began yelling at me like a grade school child, telling me to go away. I had endured a lot up to this point, but his comment, even if he was my stepson, was unforgivable. All right. I won't live here anymore. Hearing my words, Jake looked triumphant and delighted that he had managed to chase me away. Returning to my car, I took my phone out of my bag and made a call. Hello? I have a favor to ask. The person on the other end sounded utterly shocked by my words. Admittedly, my proposal was quite out of the ordinary. I felt a bit guilty, but I had no intention of changing my plan. Ignoring their objections, I asked for something outrageous. It was a plan to get revenge on my stepson, Jake, who had constantly ridiculed me. If I use this, I can definitely give that man a taste of his own medicine. My name is Samantha. I've been working at my company for decades now. My job is the CEO's secretary, and I've supported Keith, the CEO, for many years. Mr. Keith is a highly regarded figure in the industry, having built the company from scratch. He got married once in his 30s, but his ex-wife was a free spirit and ran off with another man, leaving behind their son and the divorce papers. Hey, Samantha. We've known each other for quite a long time now, haven't we? Keith, sitting in the big leather chair in his office, said this as I brought him his coffee. Yes, that's true. I was pretty green when I started, but you've really shaped me up. Yeah, there were times like that. Now, you're a seasoned pro. You're doing a great job as the chief of the secretary's office. Why the sudden compliments? You know you won't get anything out of me with flattery. I placed the coffee on his desk and chuckled. But Mr. Keith, with a serious expression, looked me straight in the eye and said, Samantha, will you marry me? What? Where did that come from? Surprised by the sudden proposal, I couldn't help but ask. I've been thinking about it for a long time. I was too busy with work to even consider marriage before, but lately, we've got more reliable employees. So, please, will you accept my proposal? Keith's expression was serious, and it didn't seem like a joke. Despite the suddenness of the proposal, I had always been attracted to Mr. Keith, so I decided to take the plunge and accept his confession. When I nodded, the anxious look on his face brightened up instantly. Thank goodness. I was worried you might say no. Well then, here's to a long and happy life together, Keith said, smiling sheepishly. And so, we registered our marriage and officially became husband and wife. Having devoted myself to my career, I was a bit embarrassed to be getting married for the first time in my 50s. Considering his social status, I thought he could marry a younger and cuter woman. I always felt a bit insecure about that, but he would laugh it off and tell me not to worry. However, there was someone who didn't like me. It was Jake, Keith's son from his previous marriage. Jake was already an adult and had joined Keith's company. He had been highly anticipated since he joined, but reality was quite different. Jake wasn't very enthusiastic about work, and on top of that, he constantly boasted to everyone around him, saying I'm the CEO's son. This caused his evaluation within the company to plummet and worsened the office atmosphere. During meetings, he ignored others' opinions and spoke selfishly, making the employees gradually resent him. Keith had only one child, Jake, and the executives were worried about the future of the company if the incompetent second generation took over. Because of this, Keith would constantly tell Jake to be more aware of your responsibilities as the next leader. As the founder of the company, Keith had earned the trust of the employees, but he feared Jake's behavior might nullify all his efforts. Despite Keith's admonitions, Jake would always respond with a laugh and say, I get it, but showed no signs of improvement. Jake wasn't just bad at his job, he had a habit of goofing off, particularly enjoying visiting nightclubs. Apparently, he was infatuated with a woman working in the nightlife industry. He frequently contacted the woman and sent her expensive gifts, leading to a constant drain on his finances. When is he ever gonna start working properly? I might have raised him wrong. Keith would sometimes mutter sadly about his son. That's not true. He's an adult now. His bad behavior is his own responsibility. Don't be too hard on yourself. I comforted my husband, leaning against him. Keith would say it was a parent's responsibility, but once you're past 20, you have plenty of chances to reflect on your character. However, Jake continued to act selfishly, never considering his parents' feelings. Hey, old hag, haven't you divorced my dad yet? You're such a brazen woman. My dad should have married someone younger. What did he even see in an old woman like you? I happened to run into Jake in the hallway at work, and as usual, he made snide remarks. It seemed Jake found my continued presence as Keith's secretary after our marriage annoying and would insult me whenever he got the chance. Greedy gold digger. Disappear already, you're pathetic. I don't know how you got close to my dad, but once I'm the CEO, you're fired. Jake's words were cruel and merciless. With a nasty grin, Jake walked away. It was always like this when I saw him. I could only hold back my tears. Jake's cruel words towards me were a daily occurrence. And Jake was sneaky. He acted nice in front of his father but would attack me when we were alone. Even though he was my stepson, we became a family. I wanted to get along with him, but no matter how much I tried to reach out, Jake never liked me. I had thought about discussing Jake's verbal abuse with Keith, but I didn't want to cause a rift between father and son, so I tried to ignore Jake as much as possible. However, that might have only aggravated him further. Our relationship seemed to worsen with time instead of improving. And then one day, an irreparable rift formed between Jake and me. Such an incident occurred. On this day, I had visited a piece of land in the suburbs, a little away from the city center, with Keith. I can't wait for our new house to be built. Yeah, I'm excited too. Maybe we should get a dog when we move. I know you love dogs. Then we'll have to take walks together every morning. It might help us stay fit. There was nothing there yet, but we planned to build our new home here. Holding hands with my husband and dreaming about the future was the happiest and most precious time for me. Standing side by side, we gazed at the site, dreaming about the new home we planned to build. I was eagerly looking forward to the days I would spend in the house we had planned together, with my beloved husband. Then, a phone call came in. It seemed to be Keith's phone. Samantha, I'm sorry. I've been called back to the office urgently. Could you handle the meeting about the house? Yes, I've got it covered. Don't worry about it. Apparently, Keith had some sudden work matter to attend to. So he had to return to the office ahead of me. I still had a meeting with the construction manager, so I decided to stay and see Keith off before returning later. Just as I finished my meeting with the construction company's representative and was about to leave, an unexpected person showed up in front of me. What a wastefully large piece of land. I bet Dad bought this for you too. It was Jake. Next to him was a young woman I didn't recognize, and the two of them were grinning. This has nothing to do with you. What are you doing here all of a sudden? Nothing to do with me? Of course it does. I'm gonna inherit all of Dad's assets someday. This land is mine. When I'm CEO, the first thing I'll do is kick you out, so enjoy it while you can, old hag. So, the company and this land will be yours, Jake? That's amazing. The woman next to Jake, whom I later learned was named Chloe, exclaimed in admiration. Wearing a short skirt that showed off her slender legs, her attire and heavy makeup made it clear she worked in the nightlife industry. She must be one of the hostesses from Jake's favorite club. It seemed he was bragging about being the CEO's son to impress her. This land is so vast. We can build a great mansion here. Dad has plenty of money, so expect the best. Their presumptuous remarks annoyed me, but I decided to ignore them, thinking they couldn't do anything more than talk. However, the situation took a sudden turn. It was discovered that Keith had a progressive form of cancer. Looks like I'll be leaving you behind. I'm sorry we won't get to live in that house together. Keith, now emaciated from the side effects of his treatment, held my hand with his thin, bony fingers. I couldn't say anything to his weakened form, all I could do was shed tears. I wiped my tears and tried to smile, but the sorrow welling up from deep within was unstoppable.
Samantha, thank you. Having you in my life made me truly happy.
Then, despite the desperate treatments, Keith passed away 3 months later. It all happened so quickly. Just a short while ago, we were talking about our future living in the new house, a life we had dreamed of together. Thinking about it now makes me feel sad. As I was engulfed in grief from losing my beloved husband, there was someone who was actually happy. That was Jake. When Keith passed away, his son Jake became the second-generation CEO.
Finally, it's my time. Now I can do whatever I want.
However, Jake, who had always had a lackadaisical attitude towards work, was incapable of managing the company, causing considerable chaos. The atmosphere in the office became instantly tense, and the employees couldn't hide their confusion and anxiety over Jake's behavior. The executives, realizing things couldn't continue like this, tried to offer Jake advice, but he refused to listen. On the contrary, he threatened to fire anyone who interfered with his management. The senior executives, who had admired Keith since the company's founding, decided they could no longer stay under such reckless leadership.
I can't work under such a reckless man.
If only the former CEO hadn't died, this wouldn't be happening. This company's finished. Unable to endure Jake's tyranny, employees began to leave one after another. Unable to tolerate the situation any longer, I decided to confront Jake directly.
Jake, please stop doing things that cause so much resentment. You have no idea how much Keith cared about this company. You should listen to the employees' opinions too.
In the CEO's office, Jake sat arrogantly in the leather chair Keith had cherished. Huh? What the hell, old hag? You're still here? And what's with that tone towards the CEO? Who do you think you are?
I'm the CEO's secretary. That hasn't changed even after the previous CEO passed away. If you continue to behave so recklessly, I won't stay silent. Acting all high and mighty. A secretary is just a tea fetcher.
I don't need someone like you, so why don't you quit already? We don't need a noisy old hag like you around here. It's a nuisance having a woman like you staying. Jake told me to quit the company.
Understood. Then here's my last piece of advice. A child like you isn't fit to be a CEO. You should quickly hand over the position to someone more capable. Otherwise...
What, are you bitter, old lady? That's pathetic, just stop. You can't do anything anyway. Jake laughed off my advice. Seeing his attitude, I realized this person was beyond saving. Silently, I left the CEO's office. After resigning from the company as instructed, I decided to take some time off to relax. I just wanted to immerse myself in the memories of Keith, who had passed away. One day, I received a phone call. It was news that the new house Keith and I were supposed to live in was almost complete. With the funeral and subsequent procedures, I had completely forgotten about the new house, but now that it was finished, I had to go see it. I drove to the location where our new home was built. But the person I was supposed to live there with was no longer in this world. Thinking about it made my heart ache. When I arrived at the new house, there were Jake and his girlfriend Chloe. Hey, what are you doing here?
That's my line. Why are you here? This is my house now, of course. Outsiders not related by blood are banned. Get lost, you shameless old hag. Go away.
To my astonishment, Jake began yelling at me like a grade school child, telling me to go away. This house was built by Keith. I remembered all the discussions we had while planning it. The house had a study where Keith could keep his favorite books and a spacious island kitchen where I could indulge in my cooking hobby. But now that Keith was gone, living in the home we had planned together seemed too painful. In that case,
all right. I won't live here. Is that enough for you?
As Jake continued to shout for me to leave, I firmly told him that I wouldn't be living here. I wanted to end the conflict over this house with the man in front of me.
Well, you're surprisingly sensible. Now, get lost and never come back.
Jake smiled triumphantly. He seemed quite pleased with himself for having gotten the better of me, and his mood was clearly elevated. I turned my back on him and started walking away. Returning to my car, I took my phone out of my bag and made a call.
Hello? I have a favor to ask.
The person on the other end sounded utterly shocked by my words. Admittedly, my proposal was quite out of the ordinary. I felt a bit guilty, but I had no intention of changing my plan. Ignoring their objections, I asked for something outrageous. It was a plan to get revenge on my stepson, Jake, who had constantly ridiculed me. A few days later, the day of the house's handover arrived. But as I had told Jake, I had no intention of going to the new house. I knew it was no longer necessary. As I was quietly drinking tea at home, my phone rang. I didn't need to look at the screen to know it was Jake.
Hey! What the hell is going on?
Jake's voice was clearly frantic. He must have been extremely agitated. What is it now?
We're strangers, remember? Don't contact me casually. This is your doing, isn't it? Why is the house being demolished by a bulldozer?
Oh, you went to the house? How does it look? It's completely clear now, just like before. By now, the land should be back to its original, empty state. Of course, I was the one who arranged for that to happen.
Are you kidding me? I inherited that. It's my house. What were you thinking, tearing down the new home we built?
Jake couldn't comprehend my actions and was furious. I remained calm and continued.
Well, there's no one to live in it, so it wasn't necessary. What? I'm here. Chloe and I are gonna live there. You've been mistaken all along. That land is mine. So, while the building might be yours, the land certainly isn't going to you. What? What do you mean? What the hell is this? You still don't get it?
Let me explain. Actually, I revealed to the furious Jake that the land was in my name, not Keith's. The land had originally belonged to my parents, and I had inherited it from them.
But Dad paid for the house. Even if the land is in your name, the building is Dad's. You can't just demolish it.
Unfortunately, the building is mine too. This was something Keith and I decided together. We agreed that the land and house would be in my name. The house had been planned with the intention of living with my elderly parents, and Keith was aware of this. During his lifetime, Keith had transferred ownership of the building to me. Thus, the house and land were not part of the inheritance at all. In other words, everything belonged to me. Without realizing this, Jake, who claimed that everything Keith had was his, was pitiful.
So, if I'm not living there, it's my right to demolish the house or sell the land. Why didn't you say that sooner, you old hag? You've got to be kidding me.
Jake was furious on the other end of the phone. And I could hear Chloe's voice in the background.
Wait, so we can't live in the house after all? That's so boring. Wait a minute. This can't be right. I'll get it back from the old hag.
Jake desperately tried to make excuses to Chloe, but it seemed she had already left in anger.
Wait, Chloe. This is all your fault. You made her leave.
Jake directed his misplaced anger at me, but I couldn't care less. Finding the conversation tiresome, I hung up the phone abruptly and blocked Jake's number. Jake's downfall from then on was quite tragic. Since taking over as CEO, the company's performance had plummeted. During Keith's time, the executives and I had built strong relationships with various business partners. However, shortly after Jake took over as CEO, he dismissed me and the senior executives, causing the company to lose the trust of its long-established partners in a short period of time. Then, a final blow came to the company's management. It was discovered that one of the young employees, a close associate of Jake's, had been embezzling company funds. That incident was just the beginning, Less than 6 months after taking over from his father, the company fell into financial trouble and quickly went bankrupt. Jake, burdened with massive debts, was now being hounded by creditors and unpaid employees. But by then, it was no longer my concern. Or so I thought, until Jake somehow tracked down my apartment and ambushed me as I was about to go out.
Please, Mom. Hide me from those people for a while. I'm begging you. If this keeps up, I'll lose everything.
Hearing Jake call me Mom so insincerely made me smirk. Jake, who had stubbornly refused to even call me by my name and had always referred to me as an old hag, was now desperate enough to bow his head to me. He apologized without any shame, begging for my help. After treating me as his enemy for so long, his sudden change of attitude was astounding. Though I felt a slight pity for him, there wasn't an ounce of sympathy left in me to hide him. However, an idea crossed my mind.
If you're that desperate, I'll call your real family. Huh? What do you mean by real family?
Jake looked puzzled, unable to grasp my words, while I made a call to someone. Conveniently, she was nearby and agreed to come over immediately.
Well, now you can finally get along with your real family.
Then, a woman who looked older than her actual age appeared. She hugged Jake, exclaiming, "I'm your mother." Previously, at Keith's request, I had used a detective to track down Jake's biological mother, Nancy. When I told Nancy about her son, she eagerly expressed a desire to meet him. However, I knew it wasn't out of motherly love, but because she wanted to extort money from him.
You're blood related to her, so take good care of her. Hey Jake, where are you living now? How much do you make? Let's live together.
Jake, terrified by Nancy's overwhelming barrage of questions, ran away from his real mother as fast as he could.
Wait, come back. You can't escape.
What will become of him now? It no longer concerns me, but I imagine a hellish life awaits him. Afterward, Jake declared bankruptcy and was left penniless. Jake lost his place to live and tried to rely on his girlfriend Chloe, but she had long since moved on to another man and married someone wealthy. When he confronted Chloe, accusing her of betraying him, she called the police and he had to leave in tears. He started looking for a job to cover his living expenses, but his high pride and poor learning skills prevented him from keeping any job for long. He would complain to those around him, lamenting how the former CEO's son had ended up in such a situation. Unable to secure a stable job, Jake now lives on welfare, scraping by. Even that little money is being extorted by his biological mother, Nancy. As for me, I used the money from selling that land to purchase a single-story house with excellent accessibility features. It's not luxurious, but I'm living peacefully and happily with my elderly parents. The house I had planned to live in with Keith will now remain a cherished memory.